Hmm?
A little bit. Okay.
I don't know. Is it not? Check it. All right, welcome everybody. Thanks for being here. So today we are talking with the Bear Moms, and I know out there we have a lot of Bear fans. A lot of people are very excited to learn about everything going on with the Bears. You know, it's just a really unique thing that we do here at the center, I think. And so without further ado, I'd like for the Bear Moms to just kind of introduce themselves and share what they do with the Bears on a regular basis so that we can kind of get into the questions and learn more about what happens with the Bears all the time. So yeah, Mac, we'll start with you. So could you say just kind of your role at the Wildlife Center, how long you've been working with the Bears, and what got you into this field?
Well, Liz. Yeah. So my name's Liz. I've been at the center for almost 2 years now. I hadn't worked with bears before this, so it's been.
You just keep
It's been that was my picture. It's been a great opportunity. I always knew I wanted to work in the field of wildlife, but I didn't know in what capacity, if I wanted to be working, I guess, a vet tech or maybe go into the zoo field. But wildlife rehabilitation is where my heart was, and I got lucky enough to be in it.
I'm Mac. I'm one of the other Bear Moms here. I've been here, Liz and I started basically at the same time, so just over 2 years. I started with like wildlife research and like field work, and I did a little time. I was a vet technician for a little bit for dogs and cats, which I quickly decided was not for me and came back to the wildlife field. So I've been here for 2 years. So Liz and I have worked with pretty much the same number of cubs. We did like the tail end of the 2021 cubs just when they were in the complex, and then we've both raised 2022 cubs and of course this year's cubs as well.
Hi, my name is Alex. I am one of the Bear Moms and the new rehab supervisor here at the Wildlife Center. What got me into this field, I've been in this animal field for about 10 years. I started in the aquarium world, then moved into animal keeping at a zoo, and then a vet tech as a zoo in the zoo for a couple of years. And my mentor at the time was very into conservation and wildlife rehabilitation, so he introduced me to that, and I fell in love with it, and now I'm here.
Amazing. Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing that information. It just kind of helps us get some context for who we're talking to here. And so maybe just to start off, could you talk about, providing some context as far as the bear protocol, all the way from the intake to the complex? What happens when we get a black bear in?
Yeah, I can take that one. So typically when we get black bears in, they're going to come in for a variety of reasons. Usually with the help of the Department of Wildlife and Resources, they decide whether that cub needs to come into rehabilitative care or if it's not actually orphaned or injured. So they'll come in. We initially do an awake exam if it's safe. So the veterinarians will do like an overview where they'll listen to their heart, their lungs. They'll check over, like brief look at their fur. They'll check their eyes, ears. And then we get into a more in-depth exam. So we'll sedate them. And while they're sedated, we can do further examination, we'll do radiographs, we'll do a skin scrape, we'll collect blood to check, make sure their blood work looks okay. We'll give them fluids to kind of rehydrate them. I think getting all the right, I don't think I'm missing anything as far as
a fecal if we can, and depending on the size, they will get ear tag at intake or not. If they're too small, we will wait.
Yeah, so that's the intake. And this is one of the little cubs that was waking up after his sedated exam. So he's just kind of a little sleepy, waking up. After intake, we typically keep them in like an isolation period where they are housed by themselves. We don't want them to interact with other cubs until we have checked like a clear fecal, make sure that their skin scrape is negative, things like that. So they're usually housed in it's called a zinger, so like kind of a metal crate that's locked for safety reasons, and we go in throughout the day and feed them, let them out, let them have some playtime with us, and
Clean them.
Yeah, clean them, of course, everything like that. Once they're cleared of quarantine, we'll move them up to our large mammal isolation enclosure. We have a small area pictured here that's called the chute. So that's bigger than that metal zinger, but it's not quite a full space where they can run around and potentially injure themselves if they're still too young to climb and stuff. If at this point we have other cubs, we can combine them. They can go together. If we don't have cubs yet, then those kind of live in there themselves. We'll do the same thing where we'll go and feed them as many times as necessary, clean, change their water, stuff like that. But in this way, we can provide them with more space and give them branches and enrichment until they're a little bit bigger and they can move out to our larger sections of large mammal isolation. So pictured here, you can see them. It's a lot bigger space. We obviously have more than one cub together now at this point. They have hides, they have a big water trough, swings, tires, everything like that, where they can play and build up those natural behaviors. We provide them with lots of enrichment to keep them busy throughout the day as they're growing and gaining weight and just kind of, doing their thing. While they're here, if they had any kind of injuries or anything like that, we had one of our cubs last year who was injured, and we were tending to her wounds and stuff like that. So if that's the case, we'll keep them in a smaller space so we can tend to those wounds. But usually once they're in the large mammal isolation space, they're free to kind of do whatever and kind of build up those skills before they're large enough to move to the complex.
And we start being more hands-off at that point.
Yeah, we definitely are trying to be more hands-off at that point. We only go in for like feeding, water, things like that. And if possible, we try and shift them over so that we are not interacting with them, especially as they get bigger, they become more dangerous to us. And we don't want them interacting with us. So we're able to move them from side to side and go in the enclosure when necessary. This here is when they're large enough to move to our big outdoor bear complex or our bear yards. We sedate them again if necessary. The vets are able to do another full exam because they haven't looked at them since intake. Rehab is the prime caretakers for them from intake on. So vets get another chance to look at them really in depth, get skin scrapes, blood work again. This is when we place their ear tags, their colored ear tags that they have right now. And then we move them out to the complex where they'll wake up and then spend the next 6 to 8 months in the complex, kind of just honing in on those climbing skills, those foraging skills, interacting with each other. We are completely hands-off once they're in the complex. We do not go in at all where they are. We just provide them food every day, which is thrown in from outside the complex. And they'll kind of just live their happy lives right there until they're ready to be released. At release time, kind of the same thing as intake and the move. They get sedated once again, and the vets can do a final exam and blood work, skin scrape, everything like that one last time before they are released. All of the release stuff is set up through the Department of Wildlife Resources. They'll find, release locations. They'll come. We'll get them set up in traps for the ride, and they'll get their colored ear tags replaced with a DWR ear tag, and off they go. So they're here quite a long time, and some of them will be here for over a year, depending on when they come in. But they're with us for quite a while. So we go through a lot of different stages with them while they're here. Oh, that was a lot. I feel like really just talked forever.
Much, I mean, intake to...
It is. A bear protocol is very extensive, and because they're here so long, it needs to be. So, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for running through that and just, explaining all of that. Because I think a lot of times people don't know all the things that really do go into it, and all the nuances that you're always thinking through as you're taking care of these bears. So kind of on that note, a lot of times people have questions about the amount of bears that we have. So why is there a limited number of bears? What's the maximum and minimum? And then also number of bear caretakers.
I can answer that. So in our protocol, we state that we can house up to 10 cubs in our yards, and we currently have 3 yards. However, we always want to keep 1 yard open. So kind of our limit, which is not our hard limit because there's always exceptions, but we try to keep about 15 to 16 cubs that we can properly care for with the amount of staff that we have.
Maximum.
That is the max that we have, that we can properly care for. Obviously, there's always exception. I think 1 year they had like 20 cubs, 20 some.
Yeah, it was right before I think Liz and I started. It was like 20
something,
20 or 22. Yeah. Which was too much. I mean, a big part is that we're the only place that can take them in Virginia, so we kind of have to do what we can.
So we won't say no to a cub, obviously, but to get the best quality care, we try to minimize that, that number, and of course, so they can have a higher chance of getting released and back into the wild.
Yeah, and also, so there's a limited number of bears to increase their care, and then there's also this limited number of bear caretakers. So if we could talk a little bit about, why that is, and preventing habituation and things like that, all the steps that you take to make sure that they're getting the top-notch care that they receive.
So our protocol here at the Wildlife Center is that after we do the initial intake, with the vets are involved, of course, the rehab team, which is a total of 4 persons at the moment, are the only ones that get to interact with the cubs. I won't go into too much detail because Liz will talk more about habituation, but that is the reason why. Because cubs at that age tend to be really prone to habituation. We want to limit the amount of humans they're exposed to, especially when they come in very young, because we have to interact with them so we can make sure they're getting the proper nutrition. We have to limit the amount of people they come in contact with.
Yeah, actually on that point, before we get into the habituation, maybe we could talk a little bit more about the nutrition. How do you determine the nutrition they receive, and how does that change over the course of their care?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. So it's a whole process, and lucky for me, my predecessor had already a comprehensive bear protocol that we do evaluate, obviously, as we go, because every group of cubs are different, but we have an outline, and it depends on the size of the cub when they come in. So obviously at like 2 kilos or less, the first attempt is to bottle feed them, and we use a specialized formula that has high fat content and like low medium protein, because that is what an omnivore like black bears need. And then as they're growing older, we transition them from formula two solids, and we have weaning foods, what we call their mush bowl, and that's kind of like our signature our signature food here at the center. And you see in the video they're eating our signature mush bowl. So the base is soaked omnivore kibble, like high protein dog food, and then the top portion, it's a mixture of the formula with baby rice cereal. So because at this point they want that formula, but we want to start weaning them off, so they'll be attracted to the formula. And then sometimes we will use like fruit, baby fruit, Gerbers, tuna, what else? Veggies, which they're not really like a trigger for them.
We'll start introducing like soft fruits and vegetables. Lots of berries.
Like purees, berries. I remember.
Right from the get-go, they'll eat the berries.
Yeah, so we love berries, which is a natural food source for bears, berries. And then we start introducing the juvenile diets, like you see here when they're in the large mammal isolation. So we're still cutting up their fruit to make it easier for them, but we're starting to leave a little bit more of the whole fruit, and we will feed them protein, fruit, and veggies and greens. This group of cubs, they love greens, they love the romaine, especially I think it's lilac, right? The one she loves romaine ever since she was a tiny cub. And then just like with any other mammal, of course, we are feeding 5% of their body weight, and we do not weigh them every day, because at that point they start getting a little bit feisty, so it's not very safe for us to be like handling them every day. But we do an average so we have like certain numbers, amounts that we have standardized amounts for them. And then once they get, and you see there's different presentations that we do as they're growing, we're leaving more fruits intact for them, so they can start learning how to tear apart a potato or something. And then at this point they'll start also liking nuts a lot, so they will naturally start cracking nuts, which is very nice to see. I think this is Lilac eating her greens, which she loves. And then once they get into the complex, their diet, we leave it whole. And again, we have protein, fruits, veggies, and greens. And then we start turning more into a seasonal diet, more natural, like wild black bears. So in the wild, black bears will change their diet based on season, because that's what they will find, so we try to mimic that while they're in captivity. That way it won't be a total shock that they won't get pineapple when they get released, So for instance, during the fall and the winter, naturally, they will turn more into a high protein diet, because bears will start looking for fatty foods. So they will start eating a lot of nuts, because if they were in the wild, they will start getting ready for brumation or hibernation, depending on where they're located, right? So here in the center, we start feeding more fish, more nuts, and more high protein omnivore kibble, like high protein dog food. And then also berries, roots. Those are all more natural food items that during this time they will start eating in the wild. And then by late September, they will start going into what is called hyperphagia, which is when they start getting more hungry, I guess. That's
they got to put on all that weight for the cold.
And you'll start noticing signs. They'll be chasing the cart, or they will meet us right at the fence when we go up there, and they will start vocalizing. They will start getting aggressive with each other for food. So that is our trigger for us to start increasing their diet, and we do 25% increments of their diet until we stop noticing those behaviors. And then so at that point, I think it's December. December when they'll start. Usually, well, at least this is based off research from wild black bears around December, because they will be going into hibernation. The bears will naturally, stop being more food motivated. In our case, our cubs will start, because black bears don't go into full hibernation, they will still like wake up and go and eat. Our cubs will naturally start being less motivated for food, and they will start eating more protein. So at that point, we will switch the ratios. The amount will stay relatively the same, but we will switch the ratios around so we can start feeding about 50% protein. And what's really interesting that Mac and Liz are both noticing this season is that, so we started what we call a protein rotation schedule, so we can give them a variety of protein. And that includes like fish, high protein dog food, even monkey chow, nuts, whole prey items, raw meat. So because they're getting like a rotation, we've been noticing that they haven't been going into full hyperphagia. We haven't been incrementing the amounts as they did last year. I think you mentioned that like last week, Mag.
Yeah, I think right now our cubs are getting 40 pounds total twice a day.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, the highest they got up to was about 80 pounds total twice a day. So our bears aren't quite they haven't shown as much hunger signs as they did last year yet, but there's still time. I mean, it's in the beginning of October, so if we keep noticing those signs, we'll just continue to increase it until they seem satisfied, until they are leaving a little bit of food. They're not like scavenging everything basically. So
and then as we go into the spring, summer, their natural diet will change back into like the protein will be most eggs, some whole prey items, not as fatty items. They won't be that interested. And in the wild, they also tend to eat a lot of bee larvae and honeycombs. So we try to offer as many things as we could offer. Obviously, it's quite hard to keep honeycombs around to feed them throughout the whole summer, spring, but I mean, we can always try. Again, they're getting more. They will be eating more berries at that time. They're big berry eaters, even in the wild, which I find fascinating because they're so large and they like tiny berries and roots and leaves and stuff. So. Yeah. But that's pretty much it. It goes a lot. There's a lot of research, thankfully, for like black bears. It is a common species, but there's always new things to consider. And in captivity, there's always that challenge of like not every cub is the same. So what we fed to the last group, maybe this group won't even touch it. The type of fish we offer also varies. So yeah. So, which, thanks to the donations that we get to, provide them with a good variety. So, but that's how we do the nutrition component. It was a lot.
Thank you. Yeah. It really is a huge feat to feed all of these bears. We get like pounds and pounds of donations from grocery stores like Whole Foods, and sometimes we like to joke that they're getting higher quality foods than the humans are because it's just really, really good stuff. A lot of just like organic whole foods, and so I think you kind of answered this a little bit in your answer already, but we have a question from someone in the audience asking if there's any food that they don't like. And it varies a bit by season, but maybe anything that you've noticed with these cubs?
Yeah, we have a few items. So they do not seem interested in squash, right? They don't love it. They'll eat it eventually. They're not a big fan of oranges. Unless you cut them.
Yeah, when they lived in large animal isolation, if you gave them a whole orange, I feel like they wouldn't touch it. Mm-hmm. But if you opened it for them, then be like, oh, okay, fine, I'll eat it. Yeah. And I don't know if it was something about the peel, they just didn't want to get into it. But
yeah, and the bananas,
yeah.
Which I saw one of them eat yesterday. But again, I think it was because it came out of the peel. I don't think they like the banana peel so much.
I feel like I always see bell peppers. They don't
bell peppers. That's true.
Yeah. The veggies are always every year they're most of the bears, half the bears don't like the the veggies we give them. They'll always eat like carrots and corn because those are higher sugar, sweeter vegetables. But like the squash and stuff, they're like, whatever. Yeah. They leave those.
They'll eat some. So they'll be like, no, last resource.
They'll just take like a bite or two, and then they'll be like, now I'm gonna move on to something.
And you'll
else.
see them, like you'll see like a zucchini, like with a bite taken out, and the whole thing is just still sitting there. Or the cauliflower, like a whole cauliflower with like half of it taken out. They're like, no, I don't want it.
Funny. It's cool to see the kind of like the quirks in the things that you maybe wouldn't expect or just know off the bat or be able to learn from a Wikipedia article or something like that. And so kind of tying into this, so you're taking care of their needs every single day pretty much. And so of course, with that, you have to, at the same time, think about when they're released, you don't want them to be relying on humans at that point. So what are the steps that you're taking to make sure this doesn't happen? And let's kind of specify for the Cubs for this past year, anything or any funny stories like from engaging in that process.
I'll take this one. So obviously when they first come in, they're going to be in that quarantine period, they're going to be by themselves, or the first cub that we'll have is going to be by himself for a little bit. It is our job to be that social interaction for them so they don't start to develop like stereotypic behaviors from boredom, lack of interaction. So for a little bit, we are going to be their main social interaction figure.
We're going to do the cub play with them.
Cub play, yes.
Which is natural behavior.
So they're out for a little bit after each feed. We'll try to incorporate as much enrichment as we can so that hopefully as they get older and they are not able to combine yet, they'll start to interact with the enrichment items rather than solely with us. So we don't want a person to be their sole fun thing in their surrounding. Obviously, we can give them stuffed animals to interact with. We'll give them logs. As they get older and they're able to be combined, that's when we'll definitely take a bigger step back. Let them interact with each other. Obviously, if we have one that's going to be smaller than the other, this year we had 2 cubs at the beginning. One of them did have a wound on her abdomen, so she had to have very supervised cub play time with our first 1-ear cub. So just being that a safety feature, if there's anything that's going to happen between the two, so we can step in if we need. Otherwise, we'll let them play, develop those natural skills.
Limit our conversation when we're around them.
Yes.
It's also another.
Limiting our talking. As cute as they are, we don't want to coddle them. They are going to grow up to be large, powerful bears. So we do not want them trying to come up to people in a friendly manner. So yeah, and limiting how many people are allowed to care for them, be around them, even as they're out in the larger complex by themselves. It's still just going to be the 4 of us that are going to be their caretakers. Yeah, because we'll definitely take a step back and let them be the bears and not have any contact possible.
Yeah, with it being the 4 of us, I mean, they recognize us. They know that we're bringing them food. They're familiar with us. But we found, like, previous years, someone else goes up there or like an unfamiliar vehicle, something like that, and they run and they hide. So although they're comfortable to us and they, run up to us, they're not like that with everyone. So that's a big reason why we limit it to just the 4 of us to, not have them used to every human bringing them foods. It's just us.
Yeah, that makes sense. And thanks for clarifying that, because I think we have a lot of people, will post a cute bear photo or video and people will say, oh, like, I need to get one, or like, so cute, like, where can I find my own bear cub to take care of? So what would you tell this person? What advice would you give this person? Why should you not kidnap a bear?
Yeah, I mean,
there's a lot of
reasons. I mean, where to start? I mean, bears, like basically any wild animal, can transmit diseases to humans. So zoonotic diseases, they can give you, you can get Bayless which is a type of roundworm. You can get ringworm from bears, giardia. Like, there's a lot of nasty stuff that bears can spread to humans, and you don't want that at all. Some of it can be life-threatening, and just don't want to minimize those risks. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that, although they're cute and cuddly and playing, and they seem like they're just like a dog or something, like, they're absolutely not. Mm-hmm. They come in from the get-go with sharp claws, and they develop real sharp teeth really fast. They have huge, powerful bites that hurt and will cause a lot of damage, even as cubs.
Yeah. Even with protective gear that we wear.
Yeah. Our skin is not made for cub play, so you feel it since they're babies and they're trying to play with you. Mm-hmm. So even on intake, we use bite busters like you see in this picture.
Right there. I mean, you can see the claws in that photo. They are long, they are sharp, they can do some damage. Yeah. And the other thing, they, like, as natural cubs, they play with each other very rough. They you might see in, like, some of our videos that they seem like they're tossing each other around. That's normal. They're okay. That's how they play. In this circumstance, because, the one bear was injured, she has that bandage around her, that was very supervised, wanted to make sure she wasn't, the one bear was not going to, like, rip off her bandage and stuff. But they really just toss each other around.
She was like jumping on top.
Yeah, and they're small right now, but I mean, as everybody knows, bears get very, very large. And if someone were to try and raise a bear on their own, and they're, playing with them as a young cub and stuff like that, eventually they're going to be 100, 200, however many pounds, even as a juvenile, and they're going to do a lot of damage. They're still going to have those sharp claws and teeth, and they're not going to know what's gentle play or not. They're going to cause a lot of harm to anybody because they'd be used to humans at that point.
Mm-hmm. And then on the other side, it's also, bears require a specialized nutrition,
Yeah.
So when you do not give that proper nutrition to any infant mammal, they could develop life-threatening illnesses like metabolic bone disease, or gastrointestinal diseases that they could die of, because of improper nutrition. So it's really not fair for the bear, and it's not safe for the human.
Yeah, and once a bear is habituated, there's no going back from that. No. You can't untrain a bear to, react to humans in a friendly manner and, like, come up to people and expect food from them. You can't have them, like, unlearn that once they've been taken care of inappropriately for so long. Mm-hmm. So there's not really a positive outcome for any bear that has been inappropriately raised and is habituated.
Yeah, releasing a habituated bear, you're basically condemning them to death, because they will come up to people for food, and even though they won't be aggressive, what is that person gonna think? They're gonna try to shoot that wild animal that's coming up to them, right? So there's a higher chance of that. So there's really not a good outcome for habituated bears.
And they're also overall just liability at that point too. Correct. To themselves and to other people.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to be able to distinguish, oh, this is the person that raised me, or this is the person that is next door that has food outside.
Yep.
So overall, not safe.
Yep.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. I think it's like when you see the really cute videos of playing with them, you want to be like, oh, but there's very serious implications behind all of these things, and they're all very thought through and methodical. So really is a very special experience that you all get to have, very unique, being able to have this relationship with the bears for, whatever period of time and however that evolves. But could you maybe talk a little bit about what it means to you to be able to have this experience, and then also just a few favorite memories, like from over the past year or so?
I think the big thing is we are the only facility in the state of Virginia that can raise black bear cubs. So all the cubs in the whole state have to come to us at some point. Of course, other facilities can take them in momentarily, but they eventually have to transfer them to us. So we are caring for all of the orphaned, injured black bears in the whole state. We do work, of course, close by with neighboring states if need be, if we have a lone cub that we need to work with or something like that, or find a buddy for.
I think this season we got a call from someone in Alaska that wanted to see
really?
our bear protocol. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were
Yeah, but I mean, it's cool to know that like we are like, it's almost like we're like the 4 caretakers of like Virginia's black bear, orphan black bears. Like that's a very cool aspect of our job that not many people get to do.
Not many facilities can do either. So
yeah,
it's very fortunate.
It is really cool.
Yep. I think one of my fondest memory from this Cubs was, or one of the things that I found very interesting. I mean, I've been working with wild animals for a while now, but raising black bears for release, it's a very new experience for me, since I spent most of my career in the zoo world where we don't necessarily release our animals, right? Even the ones we hand rear. So this is a very unique and special experience for me. And I've been hand rearing mammals for a while, and I always said that I wanted to hand rear a cub, because it was just in my bucket list as a rehabber to do. I want to raise a black bear, or like a cub in general. And one of the memories that I had from this group of cubs is knowing their personality is something very special, because we see them every day. We get to know their personalities. So when we make that move to the complex, we had 2 of our cubs in 2 groups, right? And our oldest cub, which is orange, our male orange, and then our smallest cub, green, which were the last 2 to join the group. And ever since they were in the large mammal isolation, they always kept to themselves. And it was quite, funny to see, because our orange cub was larger and our green was so small, and you would see them together. So when we transfer them to the complex, we did the small group and then the larger cubs. And we set them in 2 different yards, and when we combined them, we saw them reconnecting, and it was a very emotional moment, at least for me. It was a very emotional seeing how the orange cub running up to green bear at the time, and because she was so tiny, and this like larger cub running toward her, running down the hill to meet her, because they hadn't seen each other for 24 hours. And it was just, I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna cry. It was emotional. It was very emotional.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, like, one of my favorite memories from this group of cubs. So the second cub that came in, obviously she had that wound on her abdomen. I remember I was taking care of her. For some reason, it was just me on rehab that day. So I was taking care of her for the full day, doing all of her treatments, all of her medications. I was also there when she just like, if something clicked, she turned the corner, she started taking her bottle, she started being more active. Just seeing our cubs like overcome their either the obstacles or different just like milestones for them, like learning how to climb up the little poles in our large mammal enclosure for the first time. It's
or like when we give them the pool for the first time, they're big because they have like a small bowl that they tend to always just like flip over and stuff like that. But eventually when they are in these larger areas, we give them a big water trough, and they love the water trough. Every year we'll change the water every day, and twice a day, but we use hoses to fill it up, and the bears love to just stick their face right in front of the hose, and like literally it's so funny. It's definitely one of my favorite things for our cubs.
It's very refreshing in the summer because they're splashing, because they're trying to get the stream of water. So while you're holding on to the hose, they're splashing everywhere. So it's quite refreshing.
Yeah, they're trying to be, what is it? I know one of the times I think the hose was like left too close, and they're like trying to reach for it. I think someone on Critter Nation was like, hey, the hose got pulled in, because they like just are like, what is this novel item? I want to play with this. Like,
it's fun.
Yeah, everything is a toy to them, honestly.
So curious.
Yeah.
Speaking of toys, we had a famous celebrity guest this past year?
Oh, our duck? Yeah.
That duck.
Well, it started with, we had like the little Pikachu, which she was pictured earlier. That was like the little stuffed animal we gave the one-eared bear when she was in the little zinger, because I mean, this duck would not have fit. And then someone donated this duck, and it became basically a celebrity here. One Ear, who's pictured here. I mean, she just immediately took to it. As soon as we put it out there, she curled up on it. She was sleeping on it all day. Like, even though there was another cub in there with her, she was obsessed with the duck. She wanted to spend like all her time on there. The duck went through quite a lot over the season.
At one point, we took it out so we can hose it down.
Like watch it.
And I did see her kind of looking for it, because every time we clean, we used to put it in the hammock so it could be out of the way. And I did notice at one point when the duck is gone for a couple of days, that she went up to the hammock and was kind of like, "Where's my duck?" You know, and I was like, "Oh, that's very cute."
They love that.
They loved it.
Yeah, they loved it. We needed some biohazard gloves to pick up the dog at the end of the season, but it was worth it.
Yeah, definitely would love to provide a massive stuffed animal like that every year to the cubs because of what a hit it was. So.
Yeah, it's funny because you know, maybe wouldn't expect them to be so attached to the stuffed animal, kind of like human babies are, but it's really cute to see that. And so kind of like in that vein, you know, have you learned anything about bears or bear behavior that has surprised you?
I think the one thing I like always say is that, like, I know that bears are good climbers. Oh, literally picture that. I know bears are good climbers. You know, they're in trees. Everybody knows that. But somehow it's like the bears can defy gravity. They will climb on like the smallest limbs. Like all 5 bears will be on like one limb together. And I'm like, how is that not breaking? And they'll just like fall asleep up there together.
Very casual.
On this like branch. They're so bold and brave. And I'm like, this bear weighs so much right now. And it's just like, at the top of this tree.
I mean, that picture was taken, I think, a day or 2 days after they move into the complex. So all of those bears are about 20 kilos or so. And I was in a panic when I took that photo. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, like that.
Because I'm used to seeing them, you know, tiny. And even when they were in the large mammal isolation, I was so worried about their new climbing structure that it was already on it. And I was like, we need a ladder because one of them is so tiny, you know. And then seeing them like a month later in this tree, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I think that's orange and green. You can see the size difference between them. The huge double orange and then tiny little, you know, double green. And they just like cling together wherever they go. Right. And double green just followed this massive bear all the way up the tree and no fears. I mean, it's a natural behavior for them and they learn it and take to it immediately. So.
And which is another thing that it reminds you that this, at the end of the day, these are wild animals, and that's how we should, you know, manage them as such.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, no audio.
Lauren, I think you're muted.
You're muted. Sorry.
Oops, sorry about that. I think we're about to run out of time here, and so I just want to create a little bit of space here at the end to say if there's anything else that you'd like to add about your experiences with these bears.
I think we kind of encapsulated everything.
We touched on a lot of things.
Yeah.
Maybe anything like Mac and Liz, since you've been here for multiple seasons of bears, for lack of a better word, like how have your experiences with these bears, have they been different, or like any kind of unique mannerisms or anything like that?
I know, well, between this year and the previous year, we do have more cubs that were bottle raised than previously. So having that closer interaction with more than one cub has been interesting. It's been very rewarding to see them grow and see them develop their skills. But yeah, I think that's been the main difference. They all have their own mannerisms and personalities that you can see as they progress and grow.
They create bonds,
They-
and you
yes.
can see who's more attached
Yes.
to who
Yeah.
within the.
That's like, I mean, every year the Cubs, they all live together. They all interact. They're all like a cohesive group. But you can definitely see specific bonds between specific bears. You know, we touched on double orange and double green, but you know, last year, same thing. We had like a group of 2 that were always together, a group of 3 or so and so. Like, so it's interesting to watch those bonds form when they're such young age and see how that continues to even, you know, up to like release. They tend to like favor certain ones, and yeah, that's pretty cool.
You're muted again.
Sorry. So we have a few more questions coming in from the audience. I just want to make sure we get to. So this kind of ties in with one of the earlier questions, but could any of you have imagined that you would be, you know, in a job where you're taking care of bears as a young person, or, you know, even just a few years ago?
Personally, honestly, no. A lot of my previous experience is either in the zoo field or companion animal. Other rehab centers that I've done internships at, I've mostly been in Florida, so like seabirds, more bird heavy for sure. So coming into this role and having the opportunity to work with black bears is something that I never expected, but I love it and grateful for the opportunity.
I always wanted to work with mammals. So when I was a animal keeper, I was a carnivore keeper. So I worked with black bears at a very early in my career. And obviously I hoped, you know, to move into a position where I can still work with bears and then also be part of releasing them back into the wild.
Yeah, I mean, I guess no, I wouldn't have ever imagined I'd be working with bears. Before starting at the Wildlife Center, I didn't have any experience with bear cubs at all, so I was just kind of like thrown into it, and I mean, yeah, here I am.
Yep.
So
It's funny how our lives take these unexpected turns. So someone is asking, how is One Ear doing? How is her health?
She's great.
She's
1 year?
yeah, she's healthy.
She's
I mean,
healthy.
all the cubs right now are healthy. We don't have any concerns with them. You'll probably
No.
see, like, if you watch the cameras, you'll probably see a lot of them have like burrs all over
Yes.
them. You know, they're
Yeah.
tramping through all of the bushes and stuff out there, and they're just covered in burrs.
They're
But
very round.
yeah,
Now
they're
you can see their bellies.
they're healthy. They're eating. They're gaining weight for sure. So yeah, they all seem like they're doing well. I mean, definitely right now it's just us mitigating those behaviors, making sure like we are increasing their food if they are showing those like
Hunger signs.
and making sure those. But otherwise, yeah, everyone's good.
Oh, yeah, that's always good to hear. I'm sure the audience is relieved to hear that as well. Someone is asking, how often do your clothes get ripped when caring for cubs?
Not as often as you'd think.
Really?
At least, well, I got again. But so when we're up in the large mammal isolation, we'll wear like coveralls. So they like snap up the little overalls, but they're like corduroy material. So they're
I mean, it's
thicker.
thick.
It's thicker. So
Yeah,
if you wear those,
so-
your pants, for the most part, will get
They
saved.
last.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And same with your shirts.
I mean, they definitely could rip
They
your
could.
clothing for
Sure.
sure.
Easily. Easily.
Yeah.
I've just been,
Yeah. What was that?
I've just been lucky.
Nice. Yeah. Or skilled. So the other question is, when they're released, does it feel like sending a kid off to college? How does that feel?
For me, it's just a big relief. It's like, I'm so proud of the work that we accomplished, and now they're out doing their thing. So it's more of like, I am a little sad to see them go, but I'm more proud of than anything. Yeah.
Yeah, last year Lauren and I both got to go on the release and see them, a couple of them be released, and it was such a cool experience. I mean, the bear is like taking off from the traps and just running to the woods, and you get to, it's beautiful property. And I can't remember exactly where we released them, but beautiful wild area that they get to live for however long and get to explore and learn the rest of the behaviors, and it was just a super amazing experience to see firsthand. But you know, I think it's hard because basically the same time we're releasing them, we're also expecting new cubs if we haven't already gotten them. So this year we had, I think, like a week break.
I think so.
The year before we got a cub the day before the other ones were released, so we didn't have any time in between. So we're immediately already thinking of the next year's babies. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think, you know, a lot of times we're maybe projecting our feelings about like cute little animals onto these bears, but you know, if they think it might be sad or emotional, which, you know, might come into play, but really at the end of the day, it's just like really a job well done, I think. Yeah. All right. Well, with that, I don't see any more questions from the audience. And so I think we are good to wrap up here, unless there's anything else that anyone would like to include.
No, we're good.
Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah.
All right. Great. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here and answering all these questions and just kind of sharing your experiences that are really unique and interesting. You know, and, you know, just for teaching us all about the bears.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
This one?
I think so.
Next one?
Hey, bro.
Bug.
Oh
Try
that went on faster.
And it ended 10 minutes early.